Welcome to Feel Learns English. If you've ever reached that stage in your English learning journey where you can read almost anything and understand it perfectly on paper, but actual conversations still feel a little stiff or awkward, then you're in the right place. Many advanced learners experience this. You know the grammar, you know the words, and you can write emails or essays that sound polished, but when you speak with someone, it sometimes feels mechanical. It's like your brain knows what to say, but the words don't flow naturally yet. Today, we're going to focus on the skills that help you move from being very good at English to truly fluent, speaking in a way that is natural, flexible, and emotionally intelligent. This kind of fluency is more than just knowing fancy words. It's about using the language real people use to express feelings, connect with others, solve problems, and handle difficult moments in everyday life. We're not going to study textbook dialogues or scripted examples that feel too perfect. Instead, we'll look at real conversations based on real situations people face. These might be conversations about stress, relationships, tough decisions, or misunderstandings. This is how English is used at the highest level: thinking out loud, expressing emotions, negotiating meaning, and building connections. Before we jump into the dialogues, let's think about how learning at this advanced level works. Improving your English at C2, the highest level, isn't like climbing a simple ladder. It's more like walking a long trail with turns, hills, and sometimes steep drops. Some days you will feel like you're making huge progress. Other days it may feel slow, confusing, or even frustrating. That's normal. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is integration, bringing together vocabulary, grammar, tone, emotion, and storytelling in a way that feels natural. Today, we'll start by exploring 3 advanced words that appear often in real-life English. These words are especially useful when talking about busy schedules, unexpected opportunities, and the feeling of being overloaded. Using them correctly makes your speech more precise and vivid. Frantic. This word is between busy and panicked, but it has an emotional edge. When someone says a day was frantic, they mean it was so fast-paced that it felt overwhelming. Tasks overlap, your brain feels stretched, and you barely have time to think. For example, the morning was completely frantic. I didn't even have time to breathe. You might hear this in workplaces, parenting, traveling, or any situation where life is moving faster than you can manage. It's a word that captures intensity in a relatable way. Serendipity. This describes a happy accident or a fortunate discovery that happens unexpectedly. It's used when something positive comes into your life without planning. For example, I met my business partner through pure serendipity. We happened to sit next to each other on a delayed flight, and it led to something meaningful. This word adds elegance and emotion to your speech. You'll hear it in creative projects, relationships, professional stories, or everyday life when good things happen by chance. Overwhelmed. This word is very common in spoken English. It's used when someone feels buried by tasks, emotions, or responsibilities. It's more casual and relatable than words like inundated. For example, I've been overwhelmed at work lately, or I feel overwhelmed by everything happening this week. It helps listeners immediately understand how stressed or overloaded you feel. Expressing these emotions clearly is an important part of advanced English communication. By learning words like these, you're not just increasing your vocabulary, you're learning to express yourself like a native speaker with subtlety, clarity, and emotional depth. Because being able to describe your feelings and experiences clearly helps you express yourself accurately rather than hiding behind vague words like fine or busy. This is exactly why building a strong vocabulary foundation matters. It gives you tools to talk about your life with precision and emotion. Now that we've introduced a few useful words, let's move into our first real-life conversation. This one is between 2 friends, Natalie and Chris, who meet after a demanding week. Their conversation shows how advanced English speakers use descriptive words, emotional nuance, and thoughtful reflection to turn a simple chat into something deeper and more meaningful. Picture the scene. Natalie and Chris sit at a small cafe near their offices. Natalie looks tired, not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, heavy way that comes after a week where every day felt like a sprint. When Chris asks how she's been, she smiles softly and says her week was frantic. Not just busy, but full of pressure, deadlines, and constant activity. She explains that she felt overwhelmed by messages, requests, unexpected meetings, and last-minute changes. It wasn't just the amount of work, it was the mental effort of keeping up with everything at once. Chris listens carefully. He doesn't just wait for his turn to speak, he truly listens. Then he responds with small, supportive phrases that advanced speakers often use, like, "That sounds intense. Wow, I can imagine how draining that must have been." These small phrases are powerful. They help the conversation flow naturally, create emotional safety, and show that you're not just hearing words, you're connecting with the person behind them. As the conversation continues, Natalie shares something unexpected that happened during her hectic week. Here is where our second word, serendipity, comes into play. She tells Chris that on Thursday, after a long, exhausting day at work, she decided to stop by a local bookstore just to clear her head. While wandering through the shelves, she found a novel she had been searching for since college. There it was, waiting for her, almost as if by chance. She calls the moment pure serendipity. Chris laughs because he understands exactly what she means. It wasn't life-changing, but it was a small, magical moment, a little bit of joy that came when she needed it most. Moments like this remind us that even the busiest or most stressful weeks can hold surprises, beauty, and comfort. This story naturally shifts the conversation to deeper reflection. Natalie and Chris begin talking about how unpredictable life can be, how a week that feels frantic and overwhelming can still hold pockets of happiness, small successes, or unexpected joy. They discuss how sometimes the things that keep us going are these small, serendipitous moments. And Chris points out that these moments often appear when we are not actively searching for them, but are open enough to notice them. This kind of reflection is a key part of advanced fluency. It's not just about knowing words, it's about moving smoothly between experiences, emotions, insights, and stories while keeping the conversation natural and engaging. After thinking for a moment, Chris shares a bit about his own week. He explains that he also had overwhelming days, but for him, it wasn't just the workload, it was the feeling of always being on, constantly responding and constantly adjusting. He describes it as a week where his mind never truly rested, even when he was finally at home. He uses a phrase common among native speakers, "I felt mentally stretched thin." This simple phrase perfectly captures the exhaustion of trying to organize your thoughts when everything feels chaotic. Natalie immediately understands. It's a feeling she knows well. She explains that when stress builds up, everything feels louder. Emails, messages, and even small inconveniences feel heavier. But she noticed something important. Even during frantic and overwhelming weeks, moments of clarity and peace can appear unexpectedly. That's why she goes back to her bookstore story. She explains that holding that book reminded her that parts of her life still exist outside of work and stress. There are still little corners of life untouched by deadlines and pressure, and recognizing those moments is essential for balance, perspective, and emotional well-being. Natalie realizes that the bookstore moment was something completely her own, a small space in her life untouched by work or stress. Chris smiles and adds a phrase that native speakers often use. Sometimes the universe throws you a small lifeline. Whether you call it luck, timing, or coincidence, these moments give you something to hold on to. Hearing this, Natalie's energy starts to shift. Her posture relaxes. She begins to think not just about the stressful week, but why she felt so overwhelmed. She explains that it wasn't the work itself that was the problem, it was the constant pressure to keep up, to respond instantly, and to perform perfectly. She says something that many native speakers use when reflecting on life balance. It's like I'm always in reaction mode instead of actually living intentionally. The phrase living intentionally reflects a desire for more control, clarity, and purpose in life. It's a way to express the feeling of wanting to slow down, focus, and prioritize meaningfully instead of reacting to everything around you. Chris listens carefully, offering gentle questions like, "What do you think triggered that? Do you feel that way often?" These small prompts are an essential tool in advanced C2 level conversations. They guide the discussion deeper without taking over, and they show curiosity and empathy, not judgment. Natalie reflects on Chris's questions. She realizes that over time, she stopped giving herself permission to slow down. She became so focused on being productive that resting with guilt felt impossible. She noticed that every time she felt guilty, relieved, grounded, disconnected, consumed. These words are like building blocks for real, meaningful conversations. Chris notices this shift in Natalie and responds supportively, but without trying to fix anything. That makes total sense. When you're stuck in that cycle, it's hard to even notice you're in it. He doesn't offer solutions or minimize her feelings. He stays present, which is one of the most powerful conversational skills at the C2 level. Then, Chris shares his own small moment of clarity. He explains that on Wednesday, after a long string of meetings, he decided to go for a short walk to breathe. By chance, he ran into an old friend he hadn't seen in years. What was supposed to be a quick hello turned into a meaningful 20-minute conversation that completely changed his mood. He calls it a small reset, a phrase native speakers often use to describe brief experiences that help you feel mentally recalibrated. Natalie laughs because she immediately understands that feeling, the spark of connection, the unexpected comfort. She says, "It's amazing how something so random can completely change the tone of your day." Chris agrees. Those spontaneous interactions remind you you're still human, not just a task machine. They pause for a moment. In advanced conversations, silence isn't awkward. It's a natural space to process thoughts and emotions. It allows the conversation to breathe and gives both people room to reflect. Natalie leans forward, curious. She asks Chris if these moments, her bookstore discovery and his unexpected meeting, might be telling them something about the pace of their lives. She wonders if the reason these moments feel so meaningful is that they stand in stark contrast to the constant rush, noise, and multitasking of everyday life. Chris nods thoughtfully. Maybe it's not the moments themselves. Maybe it's the reminder that we actually need space for things to happen. This idea resonates with both of them. Their conversation gently moves from storytelling into reflection about life, priorities, and emotional well-being. This is a hallmark of advanced communication. A conversation that begins with daily stress gradually unfolds into something deeper and more meaningful. It's not forced or academic, it's natural. It happens when people feel safe to share openly, reflect honestly, and explore the emotional layers of their experiences. Before we move on to the next scenario, let's take a moment to highlight some key lessons from Natalie and Chris's conversation. These are important takeaways for improving your own English fluency. Vocabulary creates emotional clarity. Words like frantic, overwhelmed, drained, or grounded allow you to describe your feelings accurately. Instead of saying, "I'm tired" or "I had a bad week," you can express exactly what you experienced. Supportive listening shapes the conversation. Small phrases like, "I hear you," "That sounds tough," "I can see why you felt that way." These simple responses guide the conversation, show empathy, and turn dialogue into genuine connection. Small moments reveal larger truths. Everyday experiences like finding a book or running into a friend can lead naturally to deeper reflection. Native speakers often use ordinary events as springboards to discuss life, priorities, or emotions. Reflection shows advanced fluency. Being able to step back and analyze why something affected you demonstrates mastery beyond just grammar and vocabulary. Now that we've explored stress, pace, and emotional awareness, it's time to move into another crucial area of C2 level communication: handling delicate relational situations where honesty, respect, and emotional intelligence intersect. As Natalie and Chris finish their coffees, the scene shifts. We enter a new real-life scenario, focusing on two friends, Mia and Jordan, who need to navigate a sensitive issue. It's about expectations, financial pressure, and the fear of disappointing someone you care about. It's a quiet Saturday morning. Mia has invited Jordan over because she sensed something had been off between them over the past 2 weeks. There wasn't an argument or dramatic event, but the rhythm of their friendship felt slightly disrupted. Fewer messages, less ease in conversation, small hesitations. Instead of avoiding the issue, Mia decides to address it directly, which is common among emotionally mature native speakers. Avoidance creates distance. Conversation restores connection. When Jordan arrives, Mia starts gently. "Hey, before we dive into anything else, I've been picking up on a bit of tension lately. I could be wrong, but I just want to check in." Notice how she phrases this. She doesn't accuse, blame, or assume. She simply expresses her observation and leaves space for Jordan to respond. This kind of wording is extremely common in high-level English. It's respectful, honest, and open. Jordan takes a deep breath. He hesitates not because he doesn't trust Mia, but because he's been dealing with something quietly. Finally, he shares his feelings using a phrase full of emotional nuance. He says, "I've been reluctant to say anything." The word reluctant shows internal resistance. It doesn't mean a hard no, and it isn't anger. It expresses discomfort, fear, or vulnerability. Jordan explains that he recently faced unexpected financial strain due to a cut in working hours, something he hasn't told anyone. Because of this, the idea of attending Mia's high-cost dinner for her promotion made him anxious. What's important here isn't just the content of what he says, it's the tone. Jordan isn't dramatic or complaining, he's simply honest about his circumstances, which is a key part of advanced communication. He says, "I didn't want to be the one who ruined the plan. I didn't want to make things awkward, but the truth is I can't afford something like that right now, and I've been stressing about how to tell you." Mia immediately responds with understanding. She doesn't react with frustration. Instead, she validates his feelings. "Thank you for telling me. I could sense something was weighing on you, but I didn't know what it was." Validation builds trust. It signals that the relationship matters more than the event itself. Mia continues, "Honestly, I think I've been missing the subtle signs. You've been quieter lately, and we haven't hung out as much. I should have checked in sooner." Notice her use of subtle. It describes small behavioral cues, tiny shifts in tone, timing, or interaction that are easy to miss but important for understanding someone's emotional state. Sometimes emotions and subtle language carry hidden meaning. Native speakers use these words and expressions all the time when talking about feelings, awareness, or relationships. Jordan looks relieved. He explains he never meant to hide anything, he simply felt embarrassed. Embarrassment is a powerful emotion. It often makes people retreat instead of speaking honestly. Jordan says, "I know it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but I really didn't want to disappoint you." Mia shakes her head gently. Her tone is warm but firm. "You're not disappointing me. If anything, it means a lot that you trust me enough to tell me how you're actually feeling." This is a perfect example of assertiveness combined with compassion. In English-speaking cultures, being assertive doesn't mean being loud or demanding. It means being clear, honest, and respectful, exactly what Mia models here. Then Mia surprises Jordan by admitting something unexpected. She says she wasn't completely comfortable with the original plan either. She chose the expensive restaurant because she thought that's what people expected for a celebration, not because she really wanted it. She explains, "I felt like I was supposed to make it fancy, even though a smaller, more relaxed evening sounds way more like me." This revelation surprises Jordan. Suddenly, the issue isn't just his financial stress, it's a shared misunderstanding. Both of them were hiding their true preferences because they assumed the other wanted something else. This happens often in friendships and relationships. People act based on imagined expectations instead of honest communication. Jordan laughs quietly, shaking his head. "So we were both uncomfortable and neither of us said anything?" Mia smiles and replies, "Pretty much. That's what happens when we try to be polite instead of honest." This mutual admission changes the conversation completely. What began as tension turns into connection. Mia suggests an alternative, a small dinner at her apartment with home-cooked food, warm, affordable, and personal. Jordan immediately smiles. "That sounds perfect," he says, genuinely relieved. This moment shows a key skill at the C2 level, the ability to pivot. Advanced communicators recognize when a plan no longer works and can change direction thoughtfully, without judgment or discomfort. But the conversation continues. Jordan uses this moment of honesty to share something deeper. He says, "I think I've been avoiding talking about money because it makes me feel less capable, less put together." Mia responds with empathy. "We all go through tough seasons." This exchange demonstrates advanced fluency, not just with language, but with emotion. Being able to name feelings like shame or fear and responding with understanding shows emotional maturity that no vocabulary list alone can teach. As the conversation wraps up, Jordan expresses gratitude simply and sincerely. "I really appreciate you listening. It means more than you know." Mia smiles. "Always. That's what friends are for. Next time, let's promise to be a little more upfront with each other." They laugh and the tension dissolves completely. From this scenario, there are several important lessons for your English fluency. Reluctance often comes from vulnerability. Expressing that gently builds connection. Assertiveness is kindness with clarity. It prevents misunderstandings and creates safety. Subtle cues matter. Noticing small shifts in behavior is part of advanced communication. Honesty reduces pressure. Many conflicts fade when both people share the truth. Next, we'll move from personal conversations to professional settings where misunderstandings, miscommunication, and assumptions can damage working relationships if not handled skillfully. While personal conversations require emotional honesty, workplace conversations demand precision, tact, and strategic language. Even small missteps can create tension, so it's essential to communicate clearly, respectfully, and thoughtfully. In professional settings, tension can build quickly, especially when deadlines, responsibilities, or expectations collide. Our next scenario shows how two colleagues, Daniel and Sophie, navigate a workplace misunderstanding using advanced conversational strategies. They clarify intentions, maintain respect, and rebuild trust, skills essential at the C2 level. It's a Wednesday afternoon. Sophie notices that Daniel has been unusually distant since their last team meeting. He's polite, but something in his tone feels clipped. He responds quickly but never expands. His usual warmth seems gone. Because they usually work well together, this sudden shift catches her attention. Sophie knows that unspoken tension can be dangerous in a collaborative environment. Instead of ignoring it, she decides to address it before the workday ends. She walks over to Daniel's desk and carefully chooses her words. "I might be reading this wrong, but I've sensed a bit of strain between us since Monday. If something I said or did didn't sit well with you, I'd like to understand." Notice the phrasing, gentle, open, and without blame. This is how emotionally intelligent professionals approach potential conflict. They focus on understanding, not accusing. Daniel pauses, then nods. They step into a quiet corner of the office. His expression softens slightly, as if relieved the conversation is finally happening. He begins slowly. "Thanks for bringing it up. I didn't want to make things awkward, but yeah, something has been bothering me." Daniel explains what happened. On Monday's meeting, Sophie presented their project update to the department head. Normally, they co-present or review slides together, but this time Sophie finalized the presentation on her own because Daniel had been out sick the previous day. When he watched the presentation, he noticed she shared a set of data he hadn't approved, figures that were still preliminary, not ready for upper management. He describes his reaction calmly. "I felt sidelined, and honestly, I was worried the numbers would be misconstrued as our final analysis." The word misconstrued is key here. Instead of blaming Sophie, Daniel frames the issue as one of interpretation, not personal fault. This keeps the conversation neutral and focused on process rather than people. Sophie listens carefully without interrupting. Her expression shifts from concern to understanding. When Daniel finishes, she validates his feelings. "Thank you for telling me. I can absolutely see how that would make you feel left out." Notice what she does here. She acknowledges his emotions first before explaining her side. This step is essential for resolving professional tension. Then, Sophie shares her perspective clearly. She explains that when she realized they needed updated numbers for the meeting, she panicked slightly. She checked the project folder, saw Daniel's data, and noticed the preliminary label. She misinterpreted it as meaning minor adjustments were needed, not that it was unready to share. She says, "I should have double-checked with you. I thought I was helping by keeping the project moving forward." What's powerful here is the absence of excuses. She doesn't blame Daniel, say, "You were sick," or point to anyone else. She owns the oversight and clarifies. "It was a genuine misunderstanding on my part, not an attempt to bypass you." Daniel nods, his posture relaxing, tone softening. "I didn't think you were trying to go around me. I was more worried that the director would think the numbers were final." This honest clarification immediately removes lingering tension. It shows that his frustration wasn't about distrust, he was concerned about professional miscommunication. Now that both understand the context, the conversation naturally shifts to problem solving, a hallmark of advanced workplace communication. Sophie asks, "How can we prevent this kind of mix-up in the future?" Her tone is constructive, not defensive, assertive in the healthiest sense. She's clear, collaborative, and focused on solutions. Daniel considers for a moment, then suggests something practical. "Maybe anytime one of us can't review something, we leave a short note in the folder explaining what's final and what still needs work." This solution is simple but effective. It acknowledges the issue, provides a practical fix, and ensures that both parties feel respected and informed. Just a short sentence or two can often prevent confusion. Sophie agrees instantly. That's simple, and it makes sure we're always on the same page. Then she adds something even more meaningful. "I also want you to know our partnership matters to me. If anything I did made you question that, I want to rebuild that trust." This statement is powerful for two reasons. First, it acknowledges the emotional component that professionals sometimes overlook. Second, it reaffirms commitment to the relationship, not just the project. Daniel responds with equal sincerity. "I appreciate that. I value working with you too, and I'm glad we talked about this instead of letting it sit." With the tension gone, their communication becomes smoother, clearer, and more authentic. This moment turns into a strengthening point in their collaboration rather than a source of damage. There are several lessons here that advanced learners can integrate immediately. Clear observation beats accusation. Saying, "I sensed strain" is better than "you've been acting weird." Intent matters. Words like misconstrued focus on interpretation, not blame. Validation is essential. Saying, "I can see why that bothered you," opens the door to resolution. Responsibility can be shared without guilt. Mutual understanding prevents defensiveness. Assertiveness is collaborative. Asking, "How can we prevent this?" transforms the dynamic. Repair is as important as explanation. Reaffirming trust ensures long-term teamwork. Now that we've explored professional resolution, we're moving into a different kind of advanced communication, one that deals with internal conflict, identity, purpose, and major life decisions. These conversations demand more than vocabulary. They require clarity of thought, vulnerability, and careful phrasing. This next scenario takes us from external workplace situations to internal, personal, and emotionally layered dialogue. It's about moments when people face a major life decision, a pivot point where logic, ambition, fear, and identity collide. Even native speakers find these discussions challenging. They require expressing honesty without emotional overload and seeking clarity without rigidity. This scenario features Ethan and Claire, longtime partners, sitting at their kitchen table late in the evening. The room is quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Claire has sensed for weeks that Ethan has been struggling with something heavy. He goes to work, does his chores, talks about daily life, but there's a subdued energy around him. A distance in his eyes feels unusual, almost unfamiliar. Finally, Ethan breaks the silence. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I need to talk to you about something that's been weighing on me." The phrase "weighing on me" is often used by native speakers to describe internal emotional pressure. Claire sets down her cup and listens calmly without interrupting. She already senses the seriousness in his tone. "I'm here. What's been going on?" she asks softly. Her response is open, calm, and inviting, a model of emotionally intelligent listening. Ethan takes a breath, searching for the right words. "I think I've reached a point where I can't ignore how disconnected I feel from my work. It's like I'm showing up physically, but mentally I'm somewhere else. I keep asking myself whether this career is actually aligned with who I am anymore." The idea of alignment, whether your external life matches your internal values, is common in deep English conversations. It expresses the sense of living in a way that contradicts your deeper purpose. He continues, "I've been pushing through because the job is stable, it pays the bills, it gives us security, but lately it feels like every day I stay, I'm drifting further from the person I want to be." Claire listens carefully. She doesn't rush to fill the silence or offer a solution immediately. She senses Ethan needs space to articulate his thoughts fully. This patience is crucial. Many advanced English speakers demonstrate fluency not through complex words alone, but by creating space for reflection, emotion, and clarity. Advanced English conversations are often not about using complicated words, but about emotional pacing, knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the work. Ethan begins to share the moment that triggered everything a few weeks ago. He had helped his friend Lucas prepare for an art exhibit. He spent an evening surrounded by paintings, sketches, and the raw energy of creative work. Something inside him shifted. He describes it as a kind of awakening, subtle, not dramatic, but undeniable. "It wasn't just a nice evening, it felt like a reminder of something I've been shutting out for years, something I used to care deeply about." Then he adds a phrase that carries emotional weight. "It hit me harder than I expected." This is a common way native speakers describe sudden, powerful realizations. Claire finally speaks, her tone gentle. "It sounds like this wasn't just a passing feeling. It sounds like something real." She's inviting him to go deeper without forcing him. Ethan nods. "Exactly. I don't think it was just nostalgia. I think it was clarity. And now I'm questioning whether I can keep pretending I'm fine at my current job. I don't want to look back in 10 years and feel like I wasted my chance to live a life that feels meaningful. The stakes here are high. Ethan isn't just tired, he's confronting the fear of regret, a theme that drives some of the most profound human decisions. Skilled speakers rely on words like meaningful, purposeful, authentic, and fulfilling to express these ideas. Claire lets a moment of silence sit, absorbing his words. Then she asks a grounding, neutral question. Are you thinking about leaving your job? Her tone is calm, not judgmental or panicked. She's clarifying, not assuming. Ethan hesitates. I don't know yet. Part of me wants to leave tomorrow. Another part of me is terrified of what that would mean for us, the financial risk, the uncertainty, the possibility I might fail. I'm torn between wanting freedom and wanting stability. The phrase I'm torn is natural, relatable, and emotionally transparent, a perfect tool for expressing internal conflict. Claire reaches across the table and places her hand on his. Thank you for trusting me enough to say this out loud again. She validates his feelings before analyzing. Then she continues gently. I won't pretend I'm not scared when I hear you talk about leaving a stable job, but I don't want you to stay somewhere that eats away at you. If we're going to talk about this seriously, we need to look at it from both angles, the emotional side and the practical side. This balanced framing is common in mature, healthy relationships. Ethan nods slowly. That's exactly why I've been struggling. My heart is pulling me one way and logic is pulling me another. Claire responds subtly but powerfully. Maybe it's not about choosing one or the other immediately. Maybe it's about figuring out whether there's a responsible way to explore this without jumping off a cliff. The metaphor jumping off a cliff is frequently used in English when describing big risks. Here, Claire is suggesting a middle path, a gentler approach, something between staying and leaving. She continues, what if you started by dipping your toes into the creative world again? Take a class, volunteer for a project, work with Lucas more often, and see if this feeling grows or fades. Ethan looks relieved. That actually makes sense. I've been thinking in extremes, stay forever or quit immediately. Maybe I need to slow down and test the waters. Their conversation demonstrates how advanced speakers use metaphors, drifting, awakening, alignment, jumping off a cliff, testing the waters, to describe internal states that are difficult to express with simple vocabulary. Claire smiles gently. We don't have to have all the answers tonight, but we can make a plan together. This line reinforces collaboration, emotional safety, and shared problem-solving, hallmarks of advanced, meaningful communication. Partnership, shared responsibility, and mutual understanding are cornerstones of high-level interpersonal communication. Advanced fluency isn't just about knowing words, it's about emotional accuracy. Phrases like, I'm torn, it's been weighing on me, or I feel disconnected communicate real internal conflict. Metaphors make abstract feelings tangible. Balanced communication creates safety by acknowledging both emotions and practicality. Speaking thoughts out loud helps organize them, and conversation becomes a tool for self-understanding and clarity. Next, we move to another reality, how people repair trust when intentions are misinterpreted, and specific phrasing can turn tension into transparency. These situations are extremely common in real life. Native speakers navigate them using subtle phrasing, careful pacing, and awareness of tone. This scenario features two close friends, Ava and Marcus. Normally, their conversations flow effortlessly. They joke, confide, and make plans. But recently, Ava notices a shift. Marcus has become withdrawn, shorter replies, slower responses, less eye contact. Because she knows him well, she senses this is discomfort, not random moodiness. One evening, during a quiet walk, Ava gently opens the conversation. Hey, I've been picking up on a change in your energy lately. If something's on your mind, I'd really like to understand. This phrasing is intentional. She describes her observation rather than assigning meaning, avoiding loaded interpretations like, you've been acting weird. Marcus exhales, as if the question releases something he's been carrying. He hesitates, then says, I didn't want to make this awkward, but yeah, I've been feeling a little strange about something that happened last week. Ava keeps her tone calm. Okay, I'm listening. Marcus shifts his weight, then explains, when we were at dinner with your coworkers, you made a joke about me always being late to everything. Everyone laughed, and I know you didn't mean anything by it, but I felt exposed. He pauses, maybe searching for the right word, maybe even feeling a little embarrassed.
Ava's eyebrows lift slightly. She hadn't expected that. In her mind, the moment was harmless teasing, but now she recognizes it had emotional weight. She responds carefully. Thank you for telling me. I truly didn't realize it landed that way. Notice how she validates first, provides context second. Marcus continues. I know you weren't trying to put me on the spot, but the timing wasn't great. I was already nervous meeting new people, and I felt like the joke confirmed the worst impression I could make. It wasn't you, it was the moment, but it stayed with me. The phrase, it stayed with me, is common in English. It means the feeling lingered emotionally long after the event. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious. That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious. That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious. That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious. That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, "Oh, come on, it wasn't that serious." That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, "Oh, come on, it wasn't that serious." That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, "Oh, come on, it wasn't that serious." That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, "Oh, come on, it wasn't that serious." That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, "Oh, come on, it wasn't that serious." That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds. I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, "Oh, come on, it wasn't that serious." That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds, I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious. That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior over time. Ava absorbs this, nods slowly, and responds, I'm really sorry, Marcus. I honestly thought I was being playful, but I can completely see how it might have felt different from your perspective. She doesn't dismiss his feelings with comments like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious. That kind of reaction often makes misunderstandings worse. Ava continues, I didn't consider the context you were in. If I had known you were anxious, I would have never joked like that. Marcus takes a breath, a little relieved. I appreciate that. I didn't plan to bring it up because I didn't want to seem overly sensitive, but I realized it was affecting how I showed up around you. This is an important insight. Unspoken misunderstandings subtly alter behavior. Notice how they highlight emotional meaning and insight rather than just recalling events. Lucas continues, and I think that's why I approach work and life differently now. Responsibility doesn't feel like a burden the same way anymore. I learned to see the bigger picture. Emily smiles, leaning in. It makes me think about gratitude, too. We often rush through life and forget to appreciate those lessons or even each other. Here, storytelling naturally becomes a tool for connection. They are sharing memory, insight, and emotion simultaneously. Lucas nods. Exactly. And it's not just about the garden. It's about learning to step up, to notice what matters, and to carry that forward. Those little experiences shape our adult selves more than we realize. Emily laughs softly. Wow, I didn't expect a conversation about bread and cinnamon rolls to turn into life lessons. Their laughter punctuates the moment, showing how storytelling combines lightness with depth. Key advanced communication points here. Using stories to express values. Personal anecdotes reveal identity and perspective. Highlighting meaning, not just events. Emotional insight turns a simple memory into a conversation that resonates. Emotional pacing. They speak slowly, pause, and reflect, allowing space for understanding. Connection through shared experience. Small, familiar details, bakery, bread, summer garden, become bridges for deeper dialogue. Through this exchange, learners can see that advanced fluency isn't just vocabulary, it's knowing how to structure stories, convey feelings, and create understanding naturally. Key advanced communication skills illustrated. Using metaphors to convey emotion. It's like the past is sitting at the table with us. Light, natural metaphor helps convey nostalgia and shared history without being forced. Naming emotional states with precision. Phrases like stretched thin or I've been carrying guilt describe mental and emotional experiences authentically. Validating others' effort over perfection. Emily emphasizes that Lucas showing up mattered more than doing everything perfectly. You showed up anyway, even when you were scared or exhausted. This frames the conversation in terms of appreciation and growth rather than blame. Recognizing differing perspectives. It's strange how two people can live through the same moment and walk away with completely different interpretations. Advanced speakers acknowledge subjective experiences without judgment. Offering emotional insight and guidance gently. Emily's line, Asking for help isn't a burden, it's an invitation. Teaches a subtle, emotionally intelligent principle without lecturing. Creating space for reflection and reconciliation. Lucas and Emily both pause, absorb, and articulate new insights, allowing emotional understanding to grow naturally. Phrases like, "it feels like something just clicked into place," capture moments of internal resolution. Blending personal memory with universal lessons. Using a specific shared memory, that winter, to discuss responsibility, support, and resilience makes the story personal yet relatable. Balancing honesty, vulnerability, and empathy. Both siblings admit insecurities, guilt, and misperceptions while actively appreciating and validating each other. Why this is C2 level communication. It goes beyond vocabulary. It's about emotional pacing, careful phrasing, and reflection. Metaphors, idioms, and precise emotional vocabulary make abstract feelings tangible. Mutual understanding and reconciliation are achieved without confrontation or over-explaining. Every sentence builds connection, clarity, and emotional depth, which is exactly what advanced English learners should aim for. Key advanced communication strategies. Narrative depth through emotion, not complexity. Words like drifting, heavier, and hollow communicate profound inner experience without complicated grammar. Emotionally precise vocabulary makes abstract feelings tangible. Permission to express vulnerability. Priya's line, "I'm here, take your time," creates a safe space for Daniel to open up. Giving emotional permission is a hallmark of high-level conversational fluency. Layering logic and emotion. Daniel balances facts, 10 years climbing the ladder, stable income, with internal reflection, feels hollow, drifting from the life I want. Native speakers often intertwine practical and emotional reasoning for clarity. Metaphors and imagery for internal states, like I was staring at the passion I used to have. Visual language conveys abstract psychological states, helping listeners connect. Articulating fear without dramatization. Daniel states fear simply, then expands on its nuances: instability, disappointing others, lost security. This shows emotional precision, ownership, and honesty. Structured pacing and silences. Priya listens, asks gentle clarifying questions, and lets Daniel's words sit. This mirrors advanced fluency, knowing when to speak, when to reflect, and how silence can reinforce meaning. Turning reflection into action or clarity. Daniel identifies the problem. "I don't want to build someone else's dream anymore. I want to build my own." This signals self-awareness and prepares the ground for practical next steps, combining insight with intention. Why this is high-level communication? Clarity without rigidity. Daniel expresses a complex internal struggle in straightforward language. Vulnerability with control. He shares fears without exaggerating, keeping the conversation digestible and relatable. Empathy in response. Priya validates without judgment, maintaining a supportive but neutral stance. Internal-external balance. Practical reasoning, career stability, and internal reflection, values, passion, identity, coexist naturally. Advanced communication techniques illustrated. Naming nuanced emotions. Daniel uses phrases like fear, responsibility, hollow, and drifting. Priya helps him articulate competing internal values: security versus authenticity, stability versus fulfillment, external expectations versus internal truth. This allows the conversation to go beyond surface feelings and into complex internal conflict. metaphors for clarity and emotional resonance. Build a bridge first, cautious, deliberate change, climbing a ladder or looking at a version of myself, internal reflection. These metaphors make abstract psychological experiences concrete and relatable, a hallmark of native-level fluency. Balancing empathy with gentle challenge. Priya validates Daniel's fear while challenging him thoughtfully. You sound like someone who's already made the decision emotionally. She gently reframes his perspective, encouraging self-trust without imposing judgment. Strategic pacing and silence. Silences aren't empty, they give Daniel space to process, reflect, and articulate. This mirrors how native speakers use timing as part of communication, letting meaning emerge naturally. Moving from emotional recognition to practical action. Priya guides Daniel from naming feelings to exploring concrete steps, testing the waters, reviving creative projects, taking intentional small steps. The language keeps risk realistic and actionable, avoiding impulsivity while honoring emotion. Emotional validation paired with grounding advice. Lines like, "Meaning comes from alignment, not avoidance," or "You don't have to figure out everything tonight, you just have to stop pretending you're fine," are emotionally accurate, simple, and profound. They provide both reassurance and clarity, essential for high-level communication. Articulating internal dissonance. Daniel captures the universal struggle of reconciling external expectations with internal truth. "I've been scared to admit that the version of success I've been chasing wasn't actually mine." Expressing this with simple, precise language makes a complex idea accessible. Why this conversation is a masterclass. Combines vocabulary precision, metaphorical imagery, and emotional pacing. Demonstrates C2 level self-awareness, knowing what to say, when to pause, and how to express nuanced emotions. Shows relationship management, empathy, validation, and strategic guidance without taking over. Balances internal reflection and external action. Daniel articulates feelings, Priya structures exploration. Core principles of advanced communication. Observe, don't accuse. "I sensed a shift" versus "you've been acting differently." Keeps conversations non-confrontational, opening the door to understanding. Name emotions precisely. "I felt overwhelmed. It hit a nerve. I was torn. It felt hollow." Emotional clarity communicates inner states accurately and prevents misinterpretation. Validate before responding. "I can see why that would bother you." Creates safety and encourages honesty. Separate intention from impact. "I didn't mean it that way, but I understand how it landed." Essential for repairing trust and addressing misunderstandings without blame. Use metaphors to express complexity. Building a bridge, drifting, carrying weight, awakening. Makes abstract feelings concrete and relatable. Use silence strategically. Give space for reflection, honesty, and emotional processing. Practice reflective listening. "So what you're saying is," confirms understanding and deepens connection. Focus on collaborative problem solving. "How can we prevent this in the future?" Moves dialogue from tension to constructive action. Honesty builds and sustains trust. Delivered carefully, it strengthens relationships and fosters clarity. Pace clarity thoughtfully. C2 level fluency isn't rushed, it's constructed one phrase at a time with attention to tone, rhythm, and meaning. Why this matters for learners. Fluency isn't just grammar or vocabulary, it's emotional precision, intentional phrasing, and relational insight. Across personal, professional, and reflective scenarios, these strategies repeat naturally because they reflect how humans truly communicate to understand, connect, and grow. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice truth, presence, and clarity. A final reflection. Ask yourself, is there a conversation where being a little more honest, clear, or emotionally present could make a difference? Even small adjustments, expressing feelings gently, validating the other person, or using a metaphor to clarify, can shift a dynamic, repair trust, or deepen understanding. Each honest expression, each carefully chosen word builds authenticity and relational depth, the hallmark of advanced fluency.